Boom. And we are live. We're back again here, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Dream Chasers, where hustle meets house. I'm your host, General Moses, today joined by the one and only Oskar Eichler of Songstats. This is
Hey.
going to be a super fun interview, and if you're active in the industry, you know exactly why. I'm really curious to hear from Oskar, just kind of like where the idea for Songstats came from, the journey they've been on. I know as a creator myself, producer, DJ, Oskar and we haven't really had a whole lot of time to get to know each other yet, but like I totally love, you guys' product, and I'm excited to see what you got in store and just everything else in between. So welcome to the show. And yeah, on that note, could you let everyone know maybe where you're tuned in from right now and the story of Oskar?
Yeah, thanks for having me. And thanks for talking a bit about Songstats. I'm currently in Argentina, actually, and it looks like you're wearing an Argentinian shirt, even though I think you're in Toronto right now, right?
That's correct.
I'm a little bit on a tour right now. Going to be in Miami next week for Miami Music Week, and then back to Bali. Songstats is sort of based between Bali and New York. So yeah, a little bit all over the place. That's what working remotely is all about. So
Yeah. I mean, for a product like what you guys um, offer, it's a global product, so why not have a global team?
yep,
And for those actually who aren't familiar with Songstats, I know a good chunk of our listeners are probably more on the consumer side of music, right? Like just Spotify, Apple Music listening. They don't really see some of the stats that go into creating this stuff.
yep.
Just kind of explain to average listener who doesn't know what Songstats is, what the product is.
Sure. So Songstats, as the name suggests, we're collecting data on all music. It's primarily targeted at artists, record labels, and also music professionals like managements or PR companies or booking agents. Now, what we are doing is we have a mobile app and also a desktop dashboard that an artist can go to, and they can find all of the information about their audience, their track analytics, all activities and milestones that are happening. And in order to compile this, we're collecting data from all of the big streaming services and download stores, including Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, Amazon Music, Beatport, SoundCloud, even now TikTok and Instagram and so forth. So it's super comprehensive, and we always call it your little manager in your pocket, because it sort of helps you to stay on top of your release, right? And we can dive a little bit more into how we're doing this and how it's helpful, but this is sort of the quintessence of the tool to help artists kind of keep track of all their music and help them to kind of further their career and their releases.
Right. And I know a few labels, as we mentioned, even House of Hustle, and I'm sure many others. You guys, um, as you mentioned, it's not just for artists. There's other people that can really leverage the tools.
Yep. Labels is an interesting one. We have label profiles, so we aggregate the entire catalog. So then you see everything in one place, which is super helpful. We also have an enterprise side now where we basically give raw data to other companies. Notable clients, for example, here are CAA, which is pretty much the biggest booking agency in the world, and they're using our data to collect basically information on all of their roster of artists. And then they use that to say like, hey, this artist has 10,000 listeners in Buenos Aires. And so this can be a helpful argument to book a tour. For example, right? We have other dashboards that are using our data, distributors. It's pretty universal at this point. It was always funny because everyone was always saying, oh, data is valuable. I never quite understood that until we started collecting so much. And now everyone's like, oh, okay, can we see this? Or also for A&R purposes, it's also very interesting to, collect information like, hey, what's trending right now on TikTok or on Instagram, etc. So we're doing quite a bit of everything right now and trying to help the industry, to discover new talent and for especially emerging artists to keep growing. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's crazy how I think data has always been valuable. I think the way that we've viewed it as humans and as artists and even in business has totally changed the last 20 years. And for obvious reasons, you guys kind of being a front running example of what could be when data is organized properly. And so I know I'll probably say it many times throughout this interview, but I just got to thank you guys for what you've already done this far, just because it really, to your point, it's helped me. You get clarity as an I'll say as a business owner, because we just had Graham Farmer on the show recently who was talking about, a lot of artists don't realize, this is a business that you're running. And so the clarity that you get as a business owner as an artist from stuff like what Oskar and his team are doing can really help you know what the next best move is. So I'm wondering the genesis of Songstats, Oskar, are you a creator as well? Is it something that came because you're like, man, I don't see this and I want it for me. And then it all of a sudden, oh, wait, this is a data project, or, how did that all begin?
Yeah, it's twofold. I'm a producer myself. I make tech house. And then B, the core team behind Songstats is also running another website in electronic music called 1001 Track Lists. It's essentially like a database of all the sets that were played by DJs on festivals or in radio shows, and it's super helpful for fans to discover what, let's say, David Guetta played on the main stage at Tomorrowland or something like this, right? So you can go on the website and see all the songs listed, so you don't need to use Shazam or something like this. But this data that we are collecting there, it's all community driven, so it's community members suggesting sort of what songs were played, a bit like Wikipedia in a way, right? So
Yeah.
it's sort of the
Yeah. Yeah.
Wikipedia of dance music. So we're taking suggestions, it's being moderated. But this data is super valuable to artists as well, and also to record labels, because a lot of artists are doing DJ promo. That means you're sending out your tracks to DJs, because DJs ultimately are like influencers as well. If a big artist plays your track on a big stage, a lot of people will Shazam it or discover it through 1001 track lists. But then there's also a lot of content, a lot of good videos, that it makes it worth giving your music away to the bigger artists to try and get them to play it, right? So 1001 Tracklist is sort of the platform where you can then see the result of your promo campaign, right? So you send it to, let's say, 100 artists, and then in the end, 10 or 20 play it. This is sort of the result. So initially, Songstats actually was meant as 1001 Tracklist for artists, like a pro dashboard for artists and labels to see all of the supports that they've been getting by DJs. And we've built this as a little dashboard, but then it turns out it wasn't actually like enough value for artists or labels to keep checking back in, because ultimately, even if you're a big act, you might get 10, 20 supports each week. If you're smaller, you might only get a handful or something. But that's not enough for you to like open the app every day or check it every day, right? So we were kind of thinking, hey, why don't we also implement Spotify and Beatport and SoundCloud? And these were like our main or primary first sources of data. And then eventually we figured out, like, wait a second, all the tools that we're sort of building right now within electronic music, because it was all based on like the 1001 Tracklist database, all of those tools are actually applicable to the wider music space as well, not just to electronic music and DJs, but literally anyone in reggaeton and K-pop and hip hop and country. Doesn't really matter. Like all the data is valuable to anyone. So it was actually exactly 5 years ago in April when we relaunched that platform under a new name with a new branding, and that's how we launched Songstats. And it was then universally applicable to all music, and anyone could use it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny, being in tech house as well. Really, I haven't thought beyond my own genre, but that's pretty mind blowing. So how are you guys able to manage, I'm sure, inbound action from every genre now? Is that what's happening, or I guess walk us through that?
Yeah, that was a pretty big migration, going from just electronic to music in general. We essentially had to figure out a system that we internally now call the tunnel. It's sort of like, imagine that you drop like a little like a marble in on top, which is a new song, and it basically needs to find the correct path to the correct song, right? Because what is happening is that actually you have all of the you basically have music metadata on all of the different platforms, and that can be quite different. And also things that are unique are not always unique. For example, in music we have ISRCs. These are sort of like internationally standardized codes for recordings and music. And the problem is that not even those are actually unique. There's tracks with the same ISRC who are completely different, which is kind of frustrating. So we had to figure out a way to sort of, you throw in a link, let's say from Amazon Music, and it needs to attach to the correct song, because we kind of want to create a universal concept of what a song is. And then it has all these links attached to it. And this will make the user experience much better, because then you don't have all these duplicates in your catalog. It's all aggregated in one place. And there can be, for example, re-uploads of the same song, an extended mix, a radio mix, released in a compilation, sub-licensed in another territory. All of these things we actually figure out in our system and aggregate them in one place. So then when you look at your song analytics, you see everything that happened, every place that you landed on, no matter which upload or which version it was. Yeah.
Yeah. How is there a way? I guess how do you handle a situation where, like you, as you mentioned, maybe it's two songs with the same name, but it's two different artists? Is you feel like you've just kind of got the machine, we'll call it, to a point where now, where for the most part it's recognizing that, or is that like something that you guys get contacted often about, to, hey, can you fix, blah blah blah?
Mistakes happen. It's ultimately, if there's like duplicate, let's say the same artist and same title, but let's say he released one version 5 years ago and one now, but it's exactly the same. It could get merged, for example, by accident and stuff. We have a dedicated support team. We're checking all of this.
It was
Also,
pretty responsive, I
oh,
must say.
thanks.
That's good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm glad you had a good experience there. And yeah, we're and you can request, if there's actually something wrong or something missing. Is always a manual process there too. But I would say by now we're like 99 point dot 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 accurate with all the automated matching. Obviously, there can always be weird cases, but sort of the more information we have in the system, the smarter it gets, because then we have all the separate profiles and it knows more. So by now we're very accurate, I would say.
What is I'm curious to know, what is your stage name? Are you still finding time to make music? I'm sure you're pretty busy now with everything going on, because again, the growth from what I can see seems pretty exponential, what you guys are going through at the moment. So are you still making music, and what's your stage name?
Yeah, my tech house project is called Don't Blink. I had a solo project before, but I basically now am producing together with my best friend in Bali.
Nice.
And we're so we're a duo now. Don't Blink is a duo, and that's immensely helpful, because yeah, I don't have always time, but actually the reason why I'm in Argentina right now here is I'm actually a little bit on tour, and I'm playing for like 3 weekends.
Oh, let's
But
go. Nice.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I have some good shows lined up, and it's really fun. But yeah, of course, this only goes hand in hand with working remotely a lot on Songstats as well. So yeah, the DJ career is ongoing. But of course, the business and the day to day is often kind of encompassed by Songstats as well. Yeah.
Yeah, that's super inspiring. I'm looking at your profile now too, and you know, being someone who, I call it, my day job is more in like the business world, and I'm always juggling between, how much time, how much full time do I go into music versus, what's paying the bill, paying the bills, and to see someone else who's kind of balancing it in that way is, that's cool. I didn't know that, and I guess I'm gonna have to catch
I
dope.
think now a lot of artists who have a pretty decent career in music, they start as well to branch out and try to grow business on top of just their music career, which is often happening. Being creating a platform or merchandise or other ventures that can help other artists, or educating, and all these things can be very helpful, because a music career can always be a little bit volatile. As we've seen with COVID, that was quite tough for a lot of artists. So branching out or creating a business on top of like your expertise is usually a very good venture to go through.
Yeah, yeah, I love it. I want to talk about, from like I guess a networking perspective, relationship building. I'm sure for you guys to have success and continue to have success, some of the platforms we mentioned, from Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple Music, Deezer, even 1001 track lists, a lot of that probably began with you knowing some of the right people to maybe get the data that you needed to help things start flowing. So
Mhm.
how did those relationships begin, and how do you continue to keep some of these giants happy? or do they want you more than maybe than you need them? I don't know. You tell me.
I think it's been a sort of a decade-long journey of working in the music space. You know, it's with 1001 Tracklist at the beginning, we were approaching a lot of people, trying to really, um, get to know them, trying to see if they are interested in getting their tracklist onto the website. And then, of course, eventually a lot of labels were coming and trying to promote with us. Ultimately, 1001 Tracklist is a advertisement-driven business. So where we have a very strong Instagram presence, a very strong DJ promo channel, and also we're on the website. We just get a lot of traffic, so it's a great way for artists, but also primarily labels, to promote their music. And so we have a lot of people reaching out to us, but that of course was more of our core, which was electronic music. So we're already established here. Branching out of that in the wider music space has taken a little bit more time, to have a good product. But ultimately, we never really advertised Songstats. It's all pretty organically. We tried Facebook and Instagram ads and all these things, and it always felt like burning cash. It never. It feels like just throwing it at Meta and you not get anything in return.
You never
So
know. Yeah.
yeah, instead we're pretty much growing organically by artists just liking it. Artists, we create a lot of like sharing opportunities. So what we don't want Songsets to be is just this like platform that you go to after the fact, like after release is done, and then look at a graph. That's not really what Songstats is about. Cool, yeah. Of course, there's graphs in Songstats, and you can look at like the progress of a release. But we want to be there with you during a release cycle. We want to be there the moment you have a release to give you a push notification right away. When you end up on an editorial playlist, when you reach a new milestone, when you chart, when you get featured, all of these things are super impactful, and then you can share them with your fans so that you can build momentum, right? That's what Songstats is all about. So, and those tools have been quite selfish, because you asked as well, like, are you doing this for yourself? A lot of the things we're doing, I'm like, this would be cool if we had that. I would enjoy that feature, and then we're building it, and then it turns out great for not just us, but everyone else. One great example there is actually our CTO, Jack. He's also having a band in New York, and they're performing quite a lot and had a couple of great releases. And he at some point he was like, "Oh man, I really wish there was a better way to find playlists to get on." And so
Mm.
he built himself like a little engine, sort of like a playlist recommendation engine just for himself, to find strong playlists with contact information. And then he used that and pitched his music and got quite a few supports. And then we were like, wait a second, why don't we make this available as a marketing tool within Songstats? So we released that, and then actually collaborated with all of the big playlist pitching platforms like SubmitHub, Groover. There's Playlist Push, I believe, and like two or three others, Song Rocket. We now integrate with all of them, so we know which playlist they have in their database that you can pitch to, and so you can actually like get recommendations of playlists that you can pitch to through those platforms, or that we have contact information for. So you can of course use that then to hopefully get placements and build momentum on your release, right?
Yeah, that's so cool that's how you guys thought of that idea. And I have to validate what you're saying, kind of feeling like SongStats is a part of the release with me. Hit the nail on the head. Like, I just had a record go out about 12 days ago,
Yep.
and it was from the day it was released, it was charting. Actually, I think even we had it out on TrackSource a few days before the main release or whatever. But it's, I guess it's really cool to hear what you're saying, because I'm like, yeah, that is exactly kind of what it feels like. And I'm sure you guys are working on ways to optimize it, but it's got to be like, I found out about it through a fellow producer, which is organic, to also validate what you're saying. And when you share that, for me, normally that Instagram story, for you guys, it's got the branding right there. I think, actually, no, I've noticed lately you added a new feature on Instagram in particular. I think if I were to just click it and share it and like not do anything, there's already a link baked into the story. I've actually never played around with that link before. What happens if you post that and click on it? I've never actually. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
so about a year ago, we launched another small platform called SongShare. which is essentially like a automated smart link tool. So smart links in music are basically when you have one link that you can send the fan to, where all of the different platforms are listed out.
Ah,
Because someone might prefer Apple Music over Spotify, someone might listen on YouTube Music, someone might want to buy the track on TrackSource or on Beatport. So a smart link sort of aggregates all of the links, and traditionally you had to create them yourself. There's other platforms that do this, but because we're already having all of the links to the to the tracks, we're like, well, this is a pretty low hanging fruit. We can just create a cool, easy website where you can land on. So we created SongShare, and so it's a smart link. You don't need to do anything. It's doing it all automatically. And now when you share a story from the Songstats app to Instagram, we include that link right away, so that when you post it, then a fan can click on it and immediately like it opens, and you can open it in Spotify or wherever you want, right? And then listen to the track there. Yeah.
that is awesome. I feel stupid almost for not. I've never clicked on that link before, but I'm like, oh yeah, that would have been helpful. You guys, did you roll that out within like the last month or two? I think is when I started seeing it.
It's pretty new. Before, Instagram was more restrictive over basically pushing links directly when we basically are relying on Instagram to push sort of the information into the story, and then of course you can further adjust it and put links yourself. But before it wasn't possible to send a link through. Now it is, and so we're making use of it. And of course, if you don't like the link there, you can always delete it. But usually it's very helpful, because of course you want the fans to go off of Instagram and listen to your track or buy the track, right?
Yeah,
So
that's so cool. Because
I'm
yeah,
glad you noticed this. Actually,
well,
I'm really
I've noticed it, but I'm sure you'll, because well, and I don't know if I'm maybe there's other producers that are doing this, but I'm saying past tense because now I'm probably going to use it way more. I'd upload it to Instagram. It said SongShare there, and I'm like, oh, that's not the link that I wanted to post, and then I would go and put some other one-dimensional link in
Mm.
place of it, just because I never clicked on it before until now.
Okay,
So
try it. If you like it, that'll
you
be
know,
great.
I
I can
think it's a good
reveal
idea.
as well a little bit of future product updates here that we're planning to as
Yeah,
well
yeah.
add pre-save functionality into this, and also saving
Wow,
functionality into this. So then, if you link to it, people can also save it directly to their collection, or even pre-save it ahead of time, so that when it gets released, it ends up in your liked songs, right? So
nice.
yeah.
Yeah, that you're reading my mind. Good job. I don't know if it's just because you're reading your own mind, but because yeah, I have like some releases that again, they'll get put on TrackSource or Beatport well before you can share the song on Instagram with the actual release,
Yeah.
and so I'm trying to figure out sometimes like, man, how do I share this before the release, and now with you providing a pre-save link is pretty cool. So well,
Yeah, I
we'll
wanna
start.
give a bit more insight into this, because it is upcoming and we're pretty excited about it. Because pre-save campaigns in the music space are always a little bit difficult, because what you're essentially doing is you preview your song ahead of time, and then what you want to do is you want to get people to click on that link and then save it to their collection. So in order to do this, they need to authorize themselves.
Right.
For example, their Spotify account or their Apple Music account, so that then when the release goes live, it gets added to their collection. So then they're more likely to listen to it because it's already there. Now the issue is here, let's say that you run a campaign and you convert, let's say, 100 people to save that track, right? That's a lot of work, right? Usually you can put ad spend behind it or something, but ultimately that's 100 people, cool. But then that release comes out, those 100 people get it saved to their collection, and that's it. And then once there's another release, you need to do the same thing again. What we are introducing, we're basically going to be launching a new platform, and it's funny that I'm using this now to announce it, I guess, a little bit, but
Hey, we'll
um,
take it.
it's actually called presave.com. So we have the domain presave.com. And what we're going to be doing is that when you get people to pre-save your release, they can also follow you. So that then anytime you have an upcoming release, that release gets automatically added to their collection.
Mm,
So they're your followers now on presave.com. They're like your savers, basically. They save all of
yeah.
your songs. And so if you run more campaigns, you can build up, maybe you run the first one, you get 100 people. then for the next campaign, you always start with 100, and let's say you get another 100. Then from that moment onwards, each release gets saved to 200 fans, and then 500 and 1,000. So you can build up a strong list, So that's great.
That you guys are, there's all this talk in our world right now on all levels on, AI is going to replace fill in the blank. And
Mm.
now I'm sure the conversation is going to gear towards SongStats is going to replace all labels.
Well,
But I think there's obviously I think there's always going to be a need for both. The beauty of what I see with labels, and what I think, even though that's like something a lot of people like to say now, just personally, I feel like at the end of the day, a label is like a really strong brand, is what it is. So if you have a strong brand, you can always build something around it. Um, and on that note, actually, tell me a little bit about you guys' branding story. I see the logo now. If I see the logo, I go, oh, that's SongStats, and I know is any entrepreneur that's kind of you want people to feel that connection just by seeing the symbol. So what
yeah.
has the branding journey looked like for you guys? What are you doing to get the brand out there more as well?
Yeah, I mean, we relaunched it, right, and outside of electronic into the wider music space. So before we used the word track a lot, for example, from 1001 track lists, but track is more specific to electronic music. I think in electronic music you call it a track. Within the regular music space, you call it a song, right? So it was more song, and then for some reason the domain songstats.com was available. So we're like, oh wow, this is very self-explanatory, which is super helpful. We got a great designer to design the logo and the app icon, so we're super happy with that. And actually, we expanded on that because we launched, for example, SongShare last year, which was really kind of going in the same design language and branding language. So we're building it up from there. And then, of course, the sharing artworks to Instagram and all of these things, they're helpful because, as you mentioned, the logo is on top. So it's a little bit like free advertising for us, but of course it's helpful for the labels and the artists as well. So if you share your accomplishments and your milestones, then there's a little bit of branding on top that other artists that follow you or follow the label, they can then also discover it or see like, hey, what is SongStats? How can I have access to those tools, right? So yeah, that's sort of how we're branding it, and of course we keep pushing the boundaries a little bit with this stuff, but it's we were definitely the first in the, I would say, in the music analytics space that really focused on the mobile experience. For you to have SongStats as an app inside your pocket to receive push notifications and, to always be in touch with it and not just, looking at it retroactively, right?
Yep. I'm going to pull mine up right now just to validate it again for everyone. But today, there you go. And just got one of my records featured on Tool Room Radio. Shout out to Shan, Costa
Let's
UK, Kid
go.
Cut. We had a collab that we did on Leaders of the New School. But and I think we were already on this playlist a couple times, but that just goes to show you guys are doing it every time it's kind of fresh on the market. You get that notification. So there we go. We're on Tool Room Radio again today. 15.8 thousand followers listening
Let's
to our
go.
track, and
Congrats. That's
I
great.
know that because of Oscar. How are you guys? Like, what's the plan for growth now? I could be wrong, but I feel like it's just from what I'm seeing, you guys probably are in a position where you see how far you can take this now, but obviously you don't want to go too fast. It sounds like the organic piece of what you're doing is also working to your favor. So, what's the plan for, I guess, like growing the company?
Yeah, there's different aspects. One thing was a really big endeavor that we went through over like 2 years, and we launched it last year, which is called Radio Stats. Radio Stats is sort of an add-on to SongStats. It's essentially collecting radio data from over 50,000 radio stations worldwide. And
How much extra is it a month? Because I think you sold me on this interview
that
so far.
it's basically the same pricing as SongStats, but then you can get it in a bundle. So for example, for an artist, the SongStats subscription is $11.99, and then if you bundle it with Radio Stats, it's $19.99.
Okay, yeah,
So
I'm gonna upgrade after our call. There you go,
yeah,
guys.
try it. I mean, it's interesting to see sort of how much radio play you're getting. This data can be quite valuable because ultimately radio plays are public performances of your music. So if you have a publishing deal or a neighboring rights deal, you can actually get paid for this. So it sort of depends, who your publisher is, and maybe you can submit some of the songs or the radio stats reports as well to them to see if they're able to, collect those royalties. What we are doing is actually we give you an estimation of how many royalties you are potentially owed from SiriusXM. SiriusXM is in the States is pretty much the biggest digital radio station with a lot of channels, and they are paying very well per play. Um, in an amount that you wouldn't really think. Like on average now, I believe a play on SiriusXM values around $40, and
A
that
play.
now gets that now then gets split between the rights owner, which is the label, and then the artists. So there's a it's not an exact
That's
50
just mind blowing based on all these other stats we hear. I don't mean to cut you off, but I'm just curious. Like, what do you think is the reason for that? That's crazy. It's because of the people
a lot
paying
of
for Sirius.
yeah, they have a lot of subscribers. Now it's actually interesting because in reality, what is happening is that if you so we can go a little bit into more of the weeds here, but
Yeah, yeah.
uh, SiriusXM has a lot of subscribers in the US, and out of everything that they're making, they need to distribute parts of it to the artists. Now, if you are collecting, for example, with Sound Exchange, which is the collective society that basically you can use to collect your SiriusXM royalties, you will get paid for each play the same, no matter which channel it was on. So there's channels in, especially in electronic music and stuff, that don't actually get so many listeners, but you still get paid the same like everyone else. So it's
Wow.
just being averaged out. But then there's actually stations, especially like in country music and rock, that have a lot of listeners on SiriusXM. And the funny thing is that if you are one of those artists that get played on those stations, it's much preferable if you try to collect these royalties directly from SiriusXM. Because when you collect it directly from them, what will happen is that they will base what you get paid off of how many listeners that channel had. So if you are played on a channel, and usually all the electronic channels are getting less listeners than the average, so it's
Sure.
better to collect with Sound Exchange. But if you're like a big country artist or a big rock artist, then it might be actually preferable to try and get a neighboring rights deal or something with someone who collects directly from SiriusXM. So, but yeah, generally those are valued quite highly. So it makes sense to try and promo your music to some of those channels. For example, let's take Diplo's Revolution or something like this. There's a lot of radio shows on there that are played, let's say, once a week on rotation. And so if you find a person that is curating those radio shows and sort of pitch the music to them, actually each play can mean quite a lot of money. And now you also know why these residencies on these SiriusXM channels are quite valuable, because you can obviously plug a lot of your own music and collect royalties that way, right?
Yeah. Well, that is cool because if you break it down, and by the way, if you are listening to this interview and you're a label, definitely an artist, producer, and you don't have Songstats yet, I hope after what you just heard, you finally go and get the app, and also now to my point, Oscar's point, upgrade to the radio stats feature because I think actually since I don't have that one yet, I'll get notifications that like, hey, you guys kind of give like a it's almost like a tease, right? Like, hey, your song was played 100 times on the radio. Click here to find out where exactly.
Yeah.
But it's totally worth it when you look at it because you're providing value that could be directly connected to the artist making more money. I mean, that's kind of like Jeff Bezos 101, right? Like just make it a no-brainer for the customer. So
Yeah, I
go
mean,
ahead.
you can always try it, and if you don't have enough radio data to make it valuable to you, then just downgrade again, and just use Songstats. But we, of course, hope that more and more artists draw value out of it. Actually, funnily enough, we expected way less artists to sign up for it, and it's exceeded all of our expectations. Like, way more artists care about radio data than we thought they would, which is really cool. But it's also, of course, super cool to see, we break it down on the map as well, that when you get plays, let's say in Australia, or let's say
Yeah.
somewhere in South America or something, like it can be really cool. And it can also help you, of course, to maybe make an argument to go and tour there, or DJ there, or play there, right? Or whatever you are up to. So it is quite interesting. We give these royalty estimations. We also work with a partner actually directly that can help them to collect these royalties if you're interested in that. There's sort of an application process where basically just forwarding your profile to see if you're eligible. But that can be helpful as well. And we're also even collecting some or monitoring some TV stations now, like satellite TV stations in around the world, actually, especially the ones that play a lot of music. So that can also be interesting when you get played on, like, I mean, it's not that relevant anymore, like MTV used to be and stuff, but it's still quite cool. Yeah.
It's of course definitely cool to be aware of. I had a friend of mine who's honestly, I think he's contemplating getting back into DJing and music production after he's kind of seen what I've been doing the last few years here. But he was like, dude, how did you know James Hype played your song? And I'm like, well, these guys. He's like, that's so cool. I didn't know that existed. So, I know you guys
Yeah.
probably hear that every day, but it's good. I'm wondering, out of your current users, is it still predominantly electronic music consumers? And then I'm wondering what the other kind of popular genres you're starting to see use the app are.
Now, yeah, we're very strong in electronic, of course, but now it's pretty much global. It's everything, and it's also very interesting for us. Like we're going through each person who signs up and checking their catalog, and just to make sure everything's in order. And then at the beginning of each week, we kind of point out some bigger names, that came through, and there's like artists that have like millions of monthly listeners that I've never heard of. It's like, wow, they're crushing it. So it's really fun to see sort of everyone using it. Of course, we have a couple of like test use cases or testimonials that we show on the side of bigger artists that use it. But it's sort of applicable to all genres and also to all sizes of artists. So what we did, for example, with the activity feed, the feed is super unique because you basically get a feed not of weird tweets or something like this, but you get a feed of like what's happening to your music. So it's very near and dear to you, right? Because it sort of pushes what you have been trying to do in your career. So it's sort of a big endorphin machine, every time you receive a push notification, you're like, damn, James Hype played my true tune, right? Like that's really cool. And you can custom.
Basically what you're saying is you're a drug dealer as well.
Well, it's for your own best. That's probably the best drug you'll ever consume, I
Some
guess.
dopamine from Oscar and the
Dopamine,
boys.
yeah.
Yeah.
But you can customize it. So if you take like a smaller artist, you can basically set the activity settings in a way where you get notified of everything. So no matter how like small the playlist, you can like receive all those notifications. But let's say that you are a very established artist, already much bigger. You might not want to get spammed, with each little playlist that is not really like changing anything right now for you. So then you can customize it. You can say, hey, only give me editorial playlists. Hey, only give me bigger notifications for playlists with more followers, etc. And for labels that have a lot of releases, you can also, for example, say like, hey, only give me notifications on releases from the last 3 months, so that like all of your catalog, let's say you had a couple of bigger tracks in your catalog that still keep popping, so that you can actually focus on what's right now in the release cycle, what you want to push right now. And of course, those settings you can always change and then go back and see whatever they look like without, or more strict or more loose settings. So it's pretty cool that any artist or any label in any stage of their career should be able to make good use of it. Yeah.
Have you started bringing on team members? Because clearly for you, your passion lies in electronic music, tech house. You're still a DJ, all that stuff. So I'm sure working, and I could be wrong, but working within that genre might be a little bit more exciting to you. Did you go out of your way to bring anyone in who's like, a country music junkie, a hip hop junkie, fill in the blank? Did you start doing that?
Not really. Like it just happens. I mean, we're not really doing individual reach outs to artists. If we do any direct sales, it's more targeted towards like bigger companies, like platforms or distributors or management firms, because it's just we don't really want to hustle over each individual subscription. You know, if an artist discovers it, or their friend uses it, or their friend shares it, or someone that they aspire to kind of shares a Songstats notification, and that's already all the acknowledgement that we need there. So with bigger companies, it's more interesting because, of course, converting them to use Songstats or to use our enterprise side, uh, that's obviously a much bigger conversation. And potentially a much bigger deal for us as well, so it's more worth it. But our team is quite small, so we don't really have like a like unlimited capacity to reach out to everyone, but we do a lot of automated reach outs where we just like ping people with notifications and being like, hey, did you know this? And then if they didn't, they might subscribe or might check it out. So um yeah.
Yeah,
And then
and
one
then
actually
go ahead.
interesting
Yeah.
aspect as well, what we launched recently, I don't know if you're using this, but if you don't, you should. The mobile app, we launched widgets, which is pretty neat.
Okay.
So you can now add a widget to your home screen that includes some of your overall statistics. Like, for example, let's say your Instagram followers, or let's say your Spotify monthly listeners, or things like this. So then, without even needing to open the SongStats app, you can see all of your core like metrics directly on your home screen, right? Which is super cool and hopefully helpful for artists, to keep track of their career and feel excited about it.
Yeah, I'm pulling mine up now, and I wonder if maybe I need to update my my iPhone, the latest update. But do I
Oh,
just go
yeah,
to
you
the app?
might. I mean, yeah. If you're
Do I
not
just
on
go
the
to the
latest iOS, I'm not sure. Of course, with
Okay.
it's actually interesting that people always think like, oh, I don't want to update so much. Maybe my phone's going to get slower. I can tell you that within software development, usually updates are a good thing.
Okay.
So because it will make the product better. Yeah.
Well, maybe that's another thing I've learned today is I just need to stop delaying on this update, the software update.
I mean,
It's
okay,
funny.
if you're in within big disclaimer here, if you work, for example, with producing music and you rely on a lot of like external like VSTs and plugins, then you might not want to upgrade right as a big like new OS is coming out, because you might want to wait for all the other software developers down the line, to make sure that they are supporting whatever is new. There was definitely a big phase where Apple was going through like their own like silicon like transition, where a lot of like software broke, including like Rekordbox, which is pretty critical for DJs, and that's quite tough. So, and then there's no real good way of going back, which is tough. So usually maybe it's good to wait a little bit, but then don't extend that for too long, right? So
I got to get the SongStats widget now too. Um, cool. Well, what how can we I'm curious, how can we keep eyes and ears out for you guys? Like, what do you feel like in the grand scheme of things, like what are the key relationships that you kind of see yourself wanting to pursue to take song sets to that next level?
yeah, I think there's a couple of ways. So one is a couple of months ago we launched song sets for collaborators. With collaborators, we mean basically professional musicians who are not the performing artists. With DJs, mostly the producers, also the DJs, they're the performing artists. But outside of electronic music, you have a lot of musicians. Think of like producers, engineers, songwriters, lyricists, instrumentalists, like mixing and mastering engineers as well. They are and composers who are basically involved in the creation of the music, but they're credited on it in the background, but they're not the performing artist. So what we started doing is we started aggregating catalogs at the collaborator level, so that if you are a collaborator, you can now have a profile on Songstats and aggregate your catalog, which is super interesting because then you can see your work and how it's performing across all the different maybe artists that you worked with. And then, of course, you can also show that potentially to other studios or to other artists that you want to work with as a sort of like a good way of like, hey, look, collectively my tracks were streamed millions of times, and I have a pretty decent track record here, right? So yeah, we're trying to be more inclusive here and ultimately all of those musicians are equally involved in the creation of those songs. So that's a big thing, and we're still trying to push that a little bit more actively now to get more like key collaborators using Songstats and get their
Sure.
testimonials, and to just spread the word a little bit, because it's a little bit of a snowball effect, right? Like if someone uses it, they're sharing it, more people see it, So within the collaborator space, we definitely want to branch out a little bit there more now, because that's pretty new and not so many people are aware of it. Yeah.
Is James Her a client of you guys yet?
I would have to look up if he's currently subscribed, but the Two Room guys are, and he's doing all the mastering for Two Room, I think. And
I just know he's a
yeah, he's
beast,
an
right?
incredible producer. So yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's the first one that comes to mind, just based on
Yeah,
my
man. Like
knowledge. But
he's
that,
also performing artist, right? So, and he is subscribed. I just looked it up. So,
oh,
yeah.
nice. As a collaborator as well.
Uh, I don't think so. I think he's with his performing profile.
Because
Yeah.
that's kind of what you were saying is for collaborators would be
That's a great
someone like
call.
that.
I think we
Yeah, yeah.
should maybe reach out to him, since he's already using Songstats. We could try him on the collaborator profile and see if that's more interesting to him. But we'll have to
There's
see.
yeah, there's a record I'm working on right now. Who I don't want to get ahead of myself. I'll put it this way: I know she's written lyrics for Justin Bieber, and I don't think she's probably not using Songstats yet. So we'll see. That again, just that would be like kind of what you're saying.
Yeah, I
Is over
mean,
for you.
I I'd be happy if you send her this video and see if she'd be interested. It would be really great.
Cool,
Um,
cool.
yeah.
Nice. So I think we hit on all the big announcements. You got me going once you said that. I think this is the first time you talked about presave.com. So I'm like, what other breaking news can we get out of Oscar? But maybe not breaking news, but for you, just personally, as a DJ and a producer, is there anything else that like lately you've kind of been thinking to yourself, like, oh, like you said, like that would be cool if I had it. Maybe I want to do that one day as well.
Yeah, I think most of the things that we touched on already are pretty much that. I think all the tools, the marketing tools that we're doing is, I talked about playlist recommendations, but we also have what we call creator recommendations. So think of like any Instagram influencer or TikTok or YouTube Shorts creator who is using music in their reels or in their videos. We basically can put A and B together here, where we say like, hey, this creator is using similar music to what you are releasing. So you could pitch
Oh, that's cool.
your tracks to them. And then again, we're working with a couple of like the creator like platforms, like Submit Hub, or also I'd have to look up what the other ones are called now. Let's actually check really quick so I can
Yeah,
actually
yeah, go ahead.
them. Collapster is one, Breaker is one, Space Loud is one. So those are like platforms that help you get in touch with creators to use your music in their videos. And then also we have contact information, for example, from their Instagram or their TikTok or their email address. So you can find creators that would fit your music and then pitch your music to
Wow.
them, so they can use it in a video and then hopefully start a sort of a trend. That is interesting. And what we also released a couple of, I think last year, was label recommendations. So artists can get recommendations for labels that they can work with. And we're looking
That's
at like
very
labels in a
nice.
similar sound, yep, and sort of also evaluate sort of their performance. So you can like look up and see, for example, what's, let's say, the average popularity a label is reaching with each song that they release, or what's like the average, let's say, amount of days that they are charting, and stuff like this. So you can get a pretty good sense of like, hey, is it worth trying to send something to this label? And with that, we're also working actually with Label Engine and also with TrackStack. TrackStack is really great, and they make it super easy for you to send music to labels. So yeah, it's cool because it makes it, we're not doing any of these things sort of ourselves, but we become sort of like the search engine for it and the recommendation engine for it, right? So we work with all these other companies to redirect you to the right place that you should go, right? Based on our data that we have on the labels, or on the artists, and on you, right? So yeah.
Do you think is there ever going to be a Song Stats festival?
No. I think for the event side, we're doing much more on the 1001 tracklist side because it's much more fan focused. Where Songstats is a professional tool for artists and for industry people. Where 1001 tracklist, we're doing a lot of events with 1001. Now in Miami, we'll have our rooftop sessions again as well. Actually, this time at day and at night, and then also waterways, which is sort of like our boat parties.
Nice.
And we're obviously having our big like Amsterdam events, every Amsterdam dance event with the announcement of our top 101 producers, and those have been growing. And there's some big announcements as well coming later this year with music coming and more event stuff coming. So yeah, all the event and music side is on the 1001 and only in electronic music. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I love that. Um, Oscar, this has been awesome. I could, sit here and pick your brain for hours, but we'll be honorable of your time. I want to know actually before you go, you got the shows coming up here in Argentina. Were you able to figure out through your app, like, hey, this geographically this would be a great place for us to play, or was it just someone, agency or whatever, reached out to book you guys?
No, interestingly enough, we have a lot of listeners from South America. Like, I think our number one city is Santiago de Chile, and
Oh
then the
yeah,
second is Buenos Aires. So, and I'm playing in Buenos Aires this upcoming weekend. It's a huge show and pretty much the biggest club in South America, which is pretty nice. We are. I saw that in the Songstats data, right? Like, if you go to your audience tab in Spotify, you can see where all the biggest cities where your listeners are coming from. We are quite global with our music. We did an Australia tour as well last month, and we have a lot of listeners as well in Sydney and Melbourne. And yeah, as South America has always been like on top of the map. And so far, I played two shows here, and I can confirm that people love it, and they're very dedicated fans here. So I love it. Yeah.
that is great, and it's funny that you say that. So my number one, according to you guys, right now,
Mhm.
um, in the world, my top city is Santiago, Chile,
Oh, there you
and
go. They love tech house there, and like anything house related. Yeah.
that's cool. I got Santiago's number one, and I think Buenos Aires is number five.
Wow.
So there we go.
There you go. They love it here, man. They're very educated when it comes down to electronic music. There's some big legends here like Hernan Cattaneo in progressive, that have really paving the road here for a lot of great events and a lot of a lot of interest in electronic music generally.
Sounds like a lot of fun. I'll open for you guys next time. But everyone, thank you so much for tuning in here today on Dream Chasers, where hustle meets house. Make sure you, if you haven't already, check out our sponsor, House of Hustle. That's, you can go to houseofhustleltd.com for more information. That's houseofhustleltd.com. We were joined today by Oskar Eichler of Songstats, the man over there, and shout out to Oscar's team as well. We'll give Cameron a special shout out just because I did interact with you, Cameron. But I know there's many others that are just killing this thing and creating a great experience for guys like me and even Oscar. So, Oscar, any parting words of wisdom for our audience before we head out of here?
Hey, thanks so much for inviting me, and thanks so much for being a very adamant user of Songstats. This makes me so happy that the tools that we're building a little bit selfishly for ourselves are helping this many other artists and people in the music space. So if you haven't checked out Songstats, download the app, start a trial. It's free the first couple of days, and we hope that you discover some cool insights on your career that you wouldn't have found otherwise, and that can help you motivate you to produce even better music and release even more songs, and that's our main motivation. So yeah,
And figure out what cities you got to go perform at. Right. Most
exactly, all
importantly,
that,
you guys
exactly.
can catch Don't Blink in Latin America. Sounds like quite often. Look them up, wherever you get your music, and give them a follow as well. Okay. That's it for today. Ladies and
Thanks so
gentlemen,
much,
this is
Harry.
Dream Chasers. Again, where hustle meets house. Go to houseofhustleltd.com for more information. I'm General Moses. We'll catch you in the next episode. Remember, in all you think, say, and do, take it to the next level.
Hey, let's go.